The number one high school football recruit in all the land signs to play for USC, but the national press still call the Trojans losers. If you think the Dodgers had a lousy offseason, do yourself a favor. Find a Giants fan, point at him and laugh. And Jeanie Buss is proof positive that powerful, intelligent women have tragic choices in men. Hi, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos Morning Report. It is December 22nd, 2022. I am up broadcasting in Ice Station Bravo in Anchorage, Alaska. Chestnuts are roasting on an open fire, and Jack Frost is nipping at the porno store behind me. But let's talk LA sports. What do you say? If you like the content we put out, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. That's why I created the channel in the first place. Look at the scoreboard before we go through the news and notes. Last night, LeBron James dropped 31 points, added 11 assists. And yet the Sacramento Kings still wound up beating the Lakers 134-120. Totally different team without Anthony Davis. Paul George, 22 points with 8 rebounds and 8 assists. So the Clippers wind up beating Charlotte 126-105. Jalen Clark, 18 points for 13th ranked UCLA in an 81-54 victory over UC Davis. That is an 8-game winning streak for the Bruins. And USC, behind Boogie Ellis's 19 points, defeated Colorado State 73-62. Meanwhile, today, Calgary is going to be playing at the LA Kings at 7:30. Phoenix Copley has won 5 of 6 games since he was promoted from the AHL affiliate over in Ontario. So we'll start off by talking a little USC football. Before we get to early signing day, I want to drop a quick note. Jordan Addison is going to miss the Cotton Bowl, which pretty much means the wide receiver's college career is pretty much done. Addison, he tweaked his ankle earlier in the year. He missed a couple of games. He kept trying to play and whatnot. I think the reason that he's not playing in the bowl game is not because the ankle got worse, but because the ankle therefore could be 100% healthy in time for the NFL Combine. Addison came to USC through the transfer portal from Pittsburgh. Boy, does Pittsburgh hate our guts for that. Tough luck. And he was the defending Biletnikoff winner, which is the award given to the number one receiver in college football. Now, he's not going to repeat as the top receiver in the land, I wouldn't think, because he only caught 59 passes, which, by the way, is still a ton. 59 passes for 875 yards and 8 touchdowns. He didn't even lead the Pac-12 conference this year in receiving. USC spread the ball around a ton. But as for the Trojans recruiting class, it was very strange. CBSSports.com, you know how sports writers say, they love to say, oh, it's a trade deadline, it's a recruiting thing, it's whatever, here are your winners, here are your losers. They labeled the Trojans losers. Yeah, the number one player in high school football, but the Trojans are losers. Now, the reason that they came up with was they didn't land a defensive end who wound up choosing Oregon instead. Okay, I just can't call them losers when they attracted the number one guy, who, by the way, is a quarterback, Malachi Nelson out of Los Alamitos. They also wound up getting 2 4-star wide receivers, 5 offensive linemen, which is important because they have to replace 3 starters next year. They did get 2 highly touted defensive linemen, or defensive players, I should say, in an edge rusher named Brandon Shelby and linebacker Tackett Curtis. Lincoln Riley is really excited about landing Tackett Curtis. He called him, quote, the best inside linebacker in the country. Also, in addition to that, if you want to talk about Nelson, keeping him in the fold with the Trojans mattered a lot because he briefly flirted with going to Texas A&M. That's not happening. I will tell you this, if you are a Trojans fan, you might be slightly disappointed because Trojans fans are used to having top 10 recruiting classes. This one is not going to be in the top 10, but that's okay. They still added 19 recruits. They still added at very important positions. But to call them losers when they attracted the top player in the land, would you say that's an overreaction? Just wondering. Do you think the Dodgers' offseason was terrible? You do? Well, I want to give you somebody else's offseason, which is like a giant pile of dog turd that you can't scrape off the bottom of your shoe. Look no further than the San Francisco Giants. I want you to think about the Giants for a moment and the type of offseason that they put together. See, here they did. They're not as big of a market as LA, so they save their money, just like a kid trying to get what they want for Christmas. And in addition to that, he begged and pleaded. They took out a second mortgage on AT&T Park to finance their off season. They recycled aluminum cans for chump change. They get all of this money together. They offer it to Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge said, "Hell no, I don't want to play for the Giants." That's not like almost losing Malachi Nelson if you're USC. He said, "Hell no, I don't want to play for the Giants." In addition to that, then they wound up taking that money and they say, "Hey, Carlos Correa, do you want to play?" And Carlos Correa is like, "Nope, my back hurts. I think I'll play for the Mets." For all this talk we hear about what a lovely city San Francisco is, you had two elite free agents that they targeted who would rather live in that vomit-covered, stank, hot mess known as New York City. So, yeah, I really don't want to hear a whole hell of a lot about how bad the Giants offseason were. People still want to play for Los Angeles. There ain't nothing over in San Francisco worth playing for, apparently. However, we can't spin this and say that that means the Dodgers offseason was good. I will grant you that. Mookie Betts, he was asked by Fox News, of all people, about what he thought of the Dodgers offseason, and he was saying that losing that many players from the 2020 championship season sucks. Use the word. And I can't blame him for using that word. Jeanie Buss got engaged, and normally I don't believe in mentioning people's personal lives because, let's be real, love is for suckers, wouldn't you say? But before you say, okay, so Jeanie Buss, she patched things up with Phil Jackson, they'd been talking even though they weren't dating anymore and they must be getting married, that would be wrong. She got a ring from Jay Moore, comedian Jay Moore. You could have patched things up with an 11-time world champion or a known joke thief. You chose the joke thief. You could have had the innovator of the triangle offense, and you got the guy who starred in something called Gary Unmarried for a year and a half on CBS. Why would you do that? Why? I really can't stand this move because this is only going to, look, I was on the LA comedy scene. We do not need more reasons to encourage people with two penis jokes to get on the bus and take the Greyhound back into Hollywood for their shot at the brass ring. We don't need any more comedians out there. Well, if I go there, even if I don't hit it big, I might wind up sleeping with an NBA owner. I don't want to see that on the LA comedy scene. We don't need any more of that. I mean, if I don't get a job on SNL, at least there's always... No, I don't. There's always former Playboy models I could sleep with my 2 stolen penis jokes. I don't understand. We do not need people to be encouraged to move to LA for that. And by the way, Jay Moore, aside from the fact that he does steal jokes, admitted to it, by the way, have you seen the guy? Have you looked at Jay Moore? I mean, back when he was young, his head was like long, like this. Now you look at him and his head is actually growing long like this. It's very strange. It's like watching a Lego cube get even bigger, right? And then in addition to that, it's like he's lost his neck, so things are like bending all over the place. I'm telling you, the guy looks like a giant tapeworm is sprouting out of the top of his shirt. Jeanie Buss, one of the most powerful and definitely the most attractive owner in professional sports, is in love with a tapeworm. I don't get it. I don't get it. When Anthony Davis first got injured, I was saying trade rumors would even get crazier, but don't trip until at least we know the extent of Anthony Davis's injury. Then we can start to trip. Okay, so Davis is out for at least a month. Sources are telling The Athletic that instead of now the Lakers seeking more bigger trades, the injury has impressed upon them the chances of smaller trades happening. That Russell Westbrook might not get traded at all. The reason is because the only major trades LA is willing to make are for real needle movers, not ones that would just get them into the playoffs, one that would get them to championship level status. And that would mean having to replace Anthony Davis if it's longer than a month, which would just have been the status quo, struggling to be at 500. They need a player on top of Anthony Davis to push them into a championship contender status. In a month, there are going to be a lot of games for the Lakers with Anthony Davis out, but LA is only clearly, and I mean clearly outmatched versus two opponents, Denver and Dallas. So the following isn't a prediction. I'm just saying try to keep a level of optimism hovering around 500. Wouldn't necessarily be too much of a reach for the Lakers in the next month. We mentioned the Trojans a few moments ago. On the other hand, the Trojans were called losers by CBS Sports. The Bruins were called winners for landing number 3 ranked quarterback or number 3 ranked prospect Dante Moore. Which is very strange because the Bruins, I'm not going to sit there and say we don't want Dante Moore, but their class is still ranked number 24 in the nation. Now, having said that, the Bruins class still has a bunch of players that I would say I would like. I like the fact that they added 3 linebackers, because even if 2 of the linebackers hit, last year's Bruins team on defense was known for its defensive line. You keep a decent defensive line, and now you've added that second layer of linebacking help. So we have Trey Edwards of Mater Dei, Donovan Pilote of Las Vegas, and Solomon Malafu of Hawaii. If at least 2 of them hit, that solves a lot of problems for UCLA on defense. I don't necessarily know, though, if I would go overboard and say that they were the big winners compared to USC. I think it's perfectly fair to say both of them won. Aaron Donald of the Rams has been named to the Pro Bowl. Also, 2 Chargers were named, Khalil Mack and Derwin James. And frankly, I don't think any of them care. Who cares about going to Las Vegas that much? Oh, I'm so honored. When Las Vegas is a half an hour plane flight away. What an honor. You flatter me so much. Also for the Chargers, defensive lineman Joe Gaziano has been placed on IR. He injured his groin versus the Titans. Now, as you know, longtime viewers will tell you, we have a policy here not to go into further detail about men's groins. But we can tell you that Christopher Hinton is going to take the guy's place on the practice squad, so he should be playing. ESPN created a list of players who could be moved at the NHL trade deadline. Now, I'll grant you, we're a ways away from the NHL trade deadline. That is March 3rd. But their list included 2 Kings defensemen, Matt Roy and Sean Walker. They said it would be somewhat unlikely because if you're going to trade them, you would theoretically be trading them to a team that would get them to a title, the other team to a title. LA would actually be dealing from a position of strength instead of weakness. They wouldn't be a lousy team trying to get draft picks. They'd be a damn good team. They would be the ones that would be trying to make a trade to get them to championship level. So would you trade a defenseman? Well, I would argue that you still could. here's where I come from. Would you give up a trade? Would you give up one or two defensemen to a playoff caliber team, not just to potentially free up cap space next offseason, but to possibly secure a more reliable goalie? The LA Kings have been having trouble in the net for the last few months. And I can think of at least 3 goaltenders who would be on the market. But you let me know what you think, because I have to go into work. Will you tell me what you think about USC in the early signing period? Tell me what you think about UCLA's early signing period. Are you brokenhearted? Will you be floating rose petals in a lagoon over Jeanie Buss getting hitched to Jay Moore soon? And by all means, if you like the content that we put out on Faithful Angelenos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We talk LA sports here. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corte El Queso production. Take care.